So flower essences. Okay. So these are going to be liquid. Yep.
Yep.
I'm so glad you have them. Perfect.
This one is be responsible.
Yes.
Yes.
So
and I have distress over there too.
okay. So yeah. So now you saw what they look like. So they are going to be, there's 7 of them.
Mm-hmm.
There's one general remedy, which is called distress remedy. And then there's 2 fear remedies, 2 grief, and 2 anger remedies.
Oh,
so that's how you can think about them. So there's 7 total, 1 general, and then the 3 core emotions. And then of all the emotions that we struggle with, like, you know how there's like a root cause, like, well, you could have Hashimoto's, but Hashimoto's is an autoimmune disorder. So that's actually not the core diagnosis. Really, at the root of that is like gut things, and there's toxins or parasites and heavy metals and candida overgrowth or whatever in the body, different layers of toxins that need to come out that have caused an autoimmune storm. There's leaky gut, there's liver congestion, there's low glutathione, there's all these other things at the core of what's causing the Hashimoto's, even though, I don't know. So all that to say, at the core of our emotional health, like we could feel like, say, frustration or rage, but that all boils down to anger.
Yeah.
So there's fear, grief, and anger. Yeah. And then of those emotions, so when you would know you need a flower essence, or it can be beneficial if you feel stuck in an emotion, or you've been through a really traumatic either event or season or trial or, of life. So if it's more like you're just like, if it's PTSD or just a shock, you found out something really bad happened, for example, or you had a bad accident or an injury, whatever, a traumatic childbirth like I did, distress remedy is powerful for helping you to actually process those emotions. So it's very different than a medication or an antidepressant or an anti-anxiety or something like that. It does not suppress emotion. It actually does exactly the opposite. It helps us to feel what we need to feel without suppressing it or over expressing it. So cry as much as we need to cry, but be able to at least someday move on from that, right? So if in doubt, distress remedy. Distress remedy is kind of another like, I've been building my natural medicine cabinet for 2 decades or better, so, but it is one of those kind of beginner ones that can help everybody, because everybody goes through seasons of stress. Every parent or mother especially is going to have like their blow up moments or their days when they're just really overwhelmed. So distress remedy can be that thing that you go to, like when you need a minute so that you don't act out in anger toward your kids, you take a dropper full, you breathe and pray, whatever, and then you go and discipline or have a talk or whatever it is. It's also great for the kids if they're flipping out. They're getting crazy.
Wow.
Distress remedy is good for them too, right? So, like who doesn't need distress remedy at some point? So yeah, if you don't know what to do, distress remedy is a great general during any time of stress or distress.
So question on, okay. How do flower essences work, I guess?
Okay.
If you were to just have like kind of like a beginner's like explanation,
yep.
What are flower essences and like how do they actually work? Because you open it up and then there's liquid and you put the drops in something you drink, and so then what happens in the body, or how do they work?
Okay. So I take them straight. They can be mixed into some water and taken, but I drop them straight in the mouth. And if you want them to work fastest, put them straight under the tongue and let it sit for like 20 seconds before swallowing, because just like sublingual medication or vitamins, that's a direct port to your bloodstream.
Okay.
Right.
Great.
So if you really need to like diffuse some anger or whatever, it can help that way. But anyway, so they are literal extracts of flowers. So like essential oils are concentrated extracts of different parts of plants, the seed or the flower or the stem or whatever. But that's very concentrated. But these are extracts specifically from flowers, and it can be different parts of the flower. But just like every medicinal plant, flowers, we think of using flowers for grief or for love or for friendship. We give people flowers. We love to smell the flowers. Flowers make you happy, unless of course you're allergic to them. But we know that flowers are associated with emotion, but literally behind the scenes, what most people don't know is that flowers harness major healing power. It's cool that they can be, concentrated and extractions can be taken from them that we can take orally, or just like anything that can be taken orally, if you can't get it into a person's body for some reason, if they were unconscious or they had digestive problems or whatever, you could always drizzle them on somebody's spine or on their belly and just keep massaging them in until they absorb, and then they're getting in your body still.
Great.
Which means, in the same respect, when you put toxic things on your body, those things are still getting into your bloodstream too, right?
Yes.
So keep that in mind.
Yes. Then we want to have a conversation about, healthy care products.
Beauty products and stuff. Absolutely. There's so many things to know about all the things that affect our health. So that's what flower remedies are in a nutshell. And then the extracts are diluted into a base of, sometimes it's alcohol tincture, or sometimes it's glycerin, etc. Because you have to have something that naturally preserves it and allows it to be administered into the body. And this particular line that Nature's Sunshine carries, I love them, because they come in bigger sizes. So like the Bach flower remedies and stuff are tiny. They're really little and expensive, and they don't taste good. These are actually stevia sweetened, so they taste like a little treat. They're really easy to take, and they are so effective. So does that feel like a good enough explanation? Like you could understand it?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay. So that's what they are. And they're taken orally, and they can be taken straight, or they could be diluted if for some reason you didn't really like the taste of like a mild sweetness. It's not like a super stevia taste.
Sweet.
I know. I don't know. Maybe somebody doesn't. But they're easily accessible. It's a smallish bottle, so it can fit in your purse to take with you if you're going through a hard time. Like, I had a lot of kind of PTSD after the Mercy's traumatic birth, and so I used a lot of these essential oils, flower essences to deal with, because I struggled with all of these emotions. I struggled with major distress and trauma and shock, like things took a turn at birth and I wasn't prepared for that. I tried to be, but it was shocking. And then I dealt with a ton of fear, which a lot of women do postpartum. I dealt with tons of anger that things went the way they did and it wasn't what I wanted. And then tons of grief. Like I didn't have any pictures of her birth. I have no memory of the 24 hours of her birth. Like I grieved the birth story that I wanted and that I dreamed of and didn't get. And I grieved the loss of joy in that first year because I was dealing with going through so much healing. So these were super helpful for me. They've helped me to recover and not stay stuck. Some women stay stuck. I mean, people deal with way worse pain than I have, the loss of a child or a spouse or even a dog, like we love our fur babies. I love my dog, whatever it is. But I have people that I see everything. You guys, you deal with a lot of emotional things in your practice too. So these are so helpful with getting to the core, the root of why we do what we do. Some of the bad behaviors are overeating or alcohol or other addictive behaviors. There's things that we're trying to medicate with. And if we get those emotions dealt with and processed, we can stop doing the things we don't want to do.
Yeah.
So
great.
So we talked about the distress remedy. So then under the category of, let's start with fear.
Okay.
So fear, there's be courageous or there's be responsible, and it's be response-able. So it's like be able to respond to stress, be able to respond to life.
Yeah.
So be responsible, handle situations with responsibility instead of suppressing your fear. So let me take that a little further. So the vented fear formula, be courageous, is the vented fear formula. So what that means, emotions, the emotion of fear is either vented, overexpressed. You're like always paranoid, always freaking out. Everything that comes out of your mouth is a fear-based statement, or it's suppressed. You're paralyzed by fear. You can't make a decision. You can't come out of the house. You have social phobias, whatever, right? Like fear is paralyzing you. It's suppressed. So whichever one you might be dealing with, which would take kind of consulting with yourself or a client, if it were like me or you, Emmie, right? And discerning what they're really struggling with, that will help you decide which one to use. So if you're over venting your fear and you're just kind of like almost feeling kind of psycho in the fear department, then be courageous would be for you. Like,
what would that specifically look like? That is a vented, which is
vented. So overexpressed. So that would be the person that like, no matter what you say, it's like, they're like always afraid. They're afraid of everything. Their phobias of everything, but every statement that comes out of their mouths, like, but what if this happens? Or what if that happens? They're just fear mongering. Fear controls them. And it because you can see it in the statements, the words they use, or they're constantly like panicking, like everything's startling them.
Okay.
Right.
Good. And then
suppressed fear is going to be the person that is just paralyzed by fear. Like they have no voice. They're afraid to speak up. They're afraid to stand up for themselves. They are afraid to speak in public. They're afraid to go live on a video. They're just afraid. They're paralyzed by fear. So that could express itself in a lot of different ways.
So one of the things I see a lot with clients, and I know a lot of ladies listening to this will identify with it, is people pleasing, codependency, just feeling I'm unworthy of asking for what I need, taking a break at work to go use the restroom or eat, or asking for what I need, setting a boundary. So would that at all be in that?
They probably need both.
Okay. Awesome.
Because a lot of times they don't have a voice. They're not speaking up. So they're kind of paralyzed by fear.
Yes.
They're afraid to say no.
Yes.
They're afraid to say yes. They're afraid of what people might think. They're afraid to challenge themselves because the fear of failure would paralyze them. Right. Yeah. Maybe. Mm-hmm. So be responsible would be the remedy that could help with that. But then be courageous. Like they're also maybe taking measures. They're also making a lot of fear-based decisions. And if you think about the name, if you feel like that person needs to be courageous in more actions, or be brave, then be courageous would be a remedy for them.
Okay. Very good. And so would you take them both at the same time? Would you take them separately?
I would take them both at the same time.
Okay. Great.
I would take one dropper full of each, like 3 times a day.
Okay.
So you could do that for, one dropper full 3 times a day. So like the bottle will tell you like 25 drops, but 25 drops is if you take that bottle and you shake it up and then you squeeze the top and let it go as you're pulling it out, it'll only fill up a little over like halfway. That's a dropper full.
Okay.
It won't fill up like all the way. You can't get a dropper to do that. So you don't need to necessarily measure. Again, you can't overdose on it. Like we have so many emotional disorders now in the age we live in, so much stress that a lot of people could benefit from like 2 droppers full at a time, like 3 times a day. And I muscle test everybody. And so I know this, like most people need an average of 3 droppers full a day. I do have some patients that have gone through really, really hard things that sometimes need more. So like I went through a lot of anger in the postpartum stage to where it was almost like, I'm not proud of it, but like it almost felt like rage. Like I couldn't control it. It was like my hormones and the emotions, like all not sleeping for hundreds of days on end. Like it was just torture. So the keep cool would literally like diffuse it so that I didn't act out, so I would go in there to take that, but I would take 2 droppers full at a time just because I felt out of control of my body because my body was so poisoned from the drugs and the C-section and stuff. Yeah. So my liver was just flipping out.
Yeah. Good. So that kind of segues to the next one.
So anger. Yeah. So anger, lots of people struggle with anger, bitterness, resentment, inability to forgive or let go. This has been a struggle in my life. Like I came from generations of angry people. And so this is not who I am today, like on an everyday basis or anything. But nobody's exempt from having a fight with their spouse or, a somebody hurt you or whatever, just different things that can make you angry, or just the hormonal things that you feel like they like literally taken over you and you can't control it. So keep cool. These ones are easy to figure out with the anger. Keep cool if it is vented. So you're venting, right? You're venting anger. You're overexpressing your anger. You're snapping on everyone. You're raging. You always have a harsh word, that
or
kind of
maybe
thing.
you feel like you want to, because that's part of what I'm also, we work on is learning your red flags.
Mm-hmm.
So like, oh, here's my red flag. I'm about to say something that in the past I always regret. I feel this hot flush over my body and I'm getting flooded and I'm just so angry. Like that's a good time to be like, ooh,
keep cool
and
cool it down.
Chill drop, right?
That's right. Trill dropper.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah,
So
totally.
cool. That's a good one.
Yeah, so that would be keep cool. So I feel like the anger ones are easier to discern which one you need. And then the suppressed anger is going to be find strength. So you're angry, but you stuff it all inside. So you're just kind of like this bitter person, like you maybe make snide remarks or you don't have anything nice to say about other people, but it's very passive aggressive. It's still anger. You just really don't like people very well. Yeah, but you can just, you can feel, I have a lot of discernment around people. So I can just feel when somebody's like bitter or angry. You can tell by their remarks, like they're not blowing up and hitting walls and being aggressive or being violent, but
you just feel it in the air. Yeah, and that's probably the intuition there too. I'm wondering for you, like I see a lot of women who were never allowed to be angry, or they were taught anger is not okay. And so
and a lot of women who've been abused either by their parents or by spouses or even their children, they don't. That's why they need to find strength, find their voice again. It will help diffuse the anger so that they can say what they need to say or forgive who they need to forgive or have the conversation they need to have. So they might need be courageous, be responsible, and find strength. Makes sense, because these emotions are interwoven. They all go hand in hand.
Yeah, at a root of a lot of the things that I work on with ladies, and again, I know a lot of women listening to this will identify, is this sense of not feeling worthy, which stems from like past abuse or just not neglect or just things that happen, whether it's from, being bullied in school or parents or,
absolutely
internalize, those shaming themselves, judging themselves. And so there's a lot of unworthiness and codependency, people pleasing, and then the anger, because they're never allowing themselves to be angry, or they were never allowed to be angry, and they're scared of being angry. Then I see a lot of clients either staying stuck in anxiety or depression. So would that find strength be like if somebody's manifesting as I'm depressed, I'm always depressed, or I'm hyper vigilant all the time, would that might be something to consider?
I think find strength would be one of them for sure. So I think find strength for sure. Because you also have, for example, because I work with all kinds of addictions, right? Whether it's, not just food and all of that, but like whether it's drugs or prescription drugs or social media addiction and just all these different ways that we can check out. Right. And I've battled it all myself. I mean, I'm a recovered alcoholic and I know these things firsthand. And I can tell you, I've struggled with all three, like all of these core emotions. I've had the overexpressed fears where I've just been like a ball of fear and stress, but I've also had like the fear of being myself. Like it was never okay to be me, fear of having a voice, like God's given me a big voice and a, passion and all this stuff. But the enemy always tries to tell me to be quiet. Like nobody wants to hear from you. Nobody likes you. Just shut up. And so, there's just all these fears and lies that we pick up. And I also had a very angry, physically abusive dad and a very they used a lot of fear to control us. And then I had a very extreme, suppressed anger, suppressed fear mom who just isolated and was an alcoholic. So I had like the very vented and the very suppressed emotions, but yet nobody talked about their emotions and nobody taught me what to do with them. So I was just like a little bit psycho, you know, when I was trying to get healthy and figure it all out. So I've been through it all, and then I've counseled people through a lot of it. And so personally and clinically, a lot of times there's more than one, like, so don't feel like it has to be only one. Sometimes it's very obvious, like when you talk to somebody, like what I'll usually say is like, does fear, anger, or grief, now I can muscle test for these things, so that makes it really quick and easy, but I work with long distance patients too. And so I'll say like, does fear, anger, or grief resonate most with you? And they'll tell you all three, I can't pick, or, oh yeah, anger, hands down, it's anger, like anger, I cannot, like, I'm so bitter at my husband, like I just cannot let it go. And I think in your practice, like, now again, I only know from how, you know, what I know you, but I haven't been like a client or whatever, but assumably like people know that they're coming to you, and that, cause your core is like dealing with the emotional root of why you do what you do. Right.
Yeah.
So like patients come to me with all kinds of sicknesses. So we're dealing with like biochemical and physical and endocrine and all this stuff, and emotional's a layer. And so I'm having to like discern and draw it out, or call it out, or you know what I'm saying? So sometimes we deal with it in the beginning, or sometimes it's like something we're dealing with way later, because we've just got to get their liver functioning right and get them pooping first. And that that relieves a lot of emotional constipation. Yeah. So all that to say, so yeah, so there's different, you can, and these are effective any which way you do it, like whether it's first or last, or, you know, they're still stuck after you go through a bunch of other stuff. Well, then, yeah, there's probably some emotional healing that needs to take place. And they're not going to be everything. There's things that people, obviously, there's things you need to talk through, there's things you need to work through, there's things you need to pray through, counsel through. Right. And but these are such a tool. Yeah. And they're powerful, that so few people know about flower essences, and they're amazing.
So excited. So excited. Good. Well, the next one is grief.
Okay. So grief, then that would be our last one. So again, we have vented versus suppressed. So I feel like this one's easy to discern too, because grief, the person that, let's say, this is like an extreme case, but it's real, like a person who's lost their child or lost someone dear to them. Vented grief would be, you just keep crying about it and you really can't get over it, and can't go out in public, and it's been like 3 months and you're still like not healing, or maybe 5 years and you just are still not getting over it. That would be vented grief. So they need to release it. So release it would be the product, because they need to let it go somehow. And then this will help them literally just get over that hump, to let it go. You never forget the trauma's, it's still there, but you are able to heal and move on with your life, and cry when it's more like at home in the still of the night and you need to cry. That's okay. But you can go on with life healthy and move forward. Or the person who has all this grief and it's stuffed inside, and they just really need to cry it out. It really needs to come out, because it's literally like eating them from the inside out. Yeah. I feel like this is like my dad. A lot of men struggle with this because they're taught that a real man doesn't cry.
Right.
Or if you were a child and your parents were like, tough it out, don't feel your emotions, just stuff it. But you're grieving maybe the loss of a sibling that happened a long time ago, or a molestation or whatever, you know, like I had a lot of this stuff. Like I was molested as a kid, just never talked about, that's just what boys did. You just accept it. That's what you're supposed to, that's what you're a woman, you're here for. That's what boys do. Like, you know what I mean? So like you have these things, so you stuff it. And so it needs to come out. Or if somebody's like really struggling with kind of bipolar, they might need both, because they're overexpressing it and then they're stuffing it and they don't really know what to do with their emotions, because they had more of a childhood like mine, where you never were taught anything about emotional health. Nobody taught you what to do with your feelings. So you're going to stuff and you're going to overexpress at times, and it's very imbalanced. And so we need to like find a groove of addressing things head on, processing it, being able to move on, getting counsel when you need it,
Yeah.
getting resources like this or whatever.
Yeah. Awesome. Awesome. Very good. Very good. So I love how Nature Sunshine has really made it like of the vented and suppressed.
Yeah.
And
They simplified it much more. So if you, because there's other flower remedies, but it's literally just like a row, like of all these different flower essences that you have to be an expert to even know what to pick or use. It's very hard to learn those and know how to use them. It's like all kinds of special training. This
makes it easy.
7. It's easy.
Yeah. Yeah. Keep it simple. Keep it simple, sweetie. Right?
Yes. I like sweetie. I always say keep it simple, silly.
Oh, there you go. Yeah. Because the real saying is kiss, right?
Right.
It's simple, stupid. I'm like,
right. I know.
So
it's so derogatory. I know. It's so degrading. I know.
Yes. I say keep it simple, sweetie.
Yep.
Okay. Awesome.
Okay.
Well, thank you so much, Dr. Jana, for being here. I know that the Blissfully Healthy community is very grateful for all this wonderful knowledge. And I know a lot of ladies are feeling that their health is improving by being able to tap into this resource and use Nature Sunshine.
Yay. Well, it's been an honor, and I love sharing the wisdom that I've been given. So it's awesome. It's fun.
Awesome. All right. Well, thank you so much.
All right. Love you guys.